Hi everyone, yes, another product coming from PCCooler, which I've actually done one of the liquid AIO known as the DS360. If you are not aware of that content, you can click on my top right hand corner and it will take you to that content and to show you how it performed and how the aesthetic look like. Now for today, I have made requisition with CPS, in fact the main company that produced the consumer products known as PCCooler. So I've inquired this air cooler, deliberately wanted this air cooler because it looks big and is known as the RZ820. Before I begin, I'd like to thank CPS to provide this PCCooler RZ820 for me to share with you guys. Something to take note, this is the unboxing, but before I begin, the thermal test will be based on my room temperature, which you can see over here is 30.3 degrees Celsius. Now, when you unbox this unit, it's a very big box. First thing, you will be provided with all these boxes over here, nicely packed and nicely labeled, like the AMD brackets, the Intel backplate and the bracket, and a box of accessories like the mounting board, the standoffs and such, which I'll show you later. Then next, you have this nice pack instruction manual that shows you all the accessories and the mounting that is necessary. Then followed by this main unit. Now this main unit here is super duper big. Take a look at how it looks like. See? This is that big. My palm size, take a look. And when I take it out, right, this is how it looks like. It's very massive. I will go through the boxes with you starting from the left. This is meant for your AMD platform and it does support AM4 or AM5. Inside this box, a pair of brackets, nicely black chrome plated. Kudos to PCCooler, attention to details, nice. And this bracket is meant for you to mount to your motherboard before you can mount the cooler to this bracket. This is meant for your Intel platform. It supports generation 6 all the way to generation 15. That's right, the latest Arrow Lake, which is going to come out soon, inclusive of supporting the LGA 2011 socket. And again, a pair of brackets, which are chrome black, nicely done, and the back plate. Next, we have this box whereby it contains a long screwdriver, additional fan clip for you to clip one more fan to this air cooler. These are the standoffs. Be it whether Intel or AMD, you'll be using this standoff together with the mounting board. A tube of 2 gram thermal paste, which is the EX90. This is the extension 4-pin PWM fan cable, which has a splitter for you to connect the two fans that is on the air cooler. And last but not least, these are the standoffs for LGA 2011 socket. This is how the main unit looks like, starting from the top. At the top left hand corner, you'll see this CPS logo. It will glow, but it's very small. Followed by the lower left hand corner where you have this triangle. This is where your ARGB effects will take place. You can remove this top cover. As you can see at the side, there is this tab over here. You can just pull and it will just come off. And what hold this whole cover, okay, let me just align properly. Yep. What holds this whole cover, in fact, is by magnets. And when you want to place this cover back, right, make sure you do the correct orientation. As in the logo over here, CPS, which is in orange, make sure it matches with the 3 LEDs over here. And for the bottom section where you have this triangle, right, matches the mirror finish with all the LEDs over here. It can only go in one direction. See? It's quite easy. And it doesn't go the other direction. You can't. So make sure you orientate it correctly. Now when I expose this which shows you the interior. At the centerpiece, this is the 140mm fan, which I will talk about it later. And at the front, right, okay, this is removable at the center, the 140mm fan. Else for the 120, which is right in front, this is not removable, but you can push up or push down. And what is this for? Basically, what it does, it has a function. Okay, showing you the side. Assuming that your rams are taller and you can't, this is going to hit your rams, you can just push this out, see, to give you more clearance. And this is at the side. This is at the rear, whereby it has this wavy kind of pattern. Nicely done, see. This is the other side again, and the front. Now, at the bottom where the cold plate is, it comes with pre-paste. Where this pre-paste, right, in fact, is the paste of EX90, which I've checked with CPS. They've told me about this. And the finish at the cold plate, right, is nickel full copper plate, or should I say nickel copper. Nicely done. Another strong feature about this air cooler, it has total of 8 heat pipe, whereby I believe it will dissipate more heat to be dispersed to the heatsink, which is good. As for the measurement of this fan itself, I will start off from the top. Let me just put this in the correct direction with the cover on. Now, measuring from here to here is 161mm. From here to here is 150mm. And as for the height of the cooler, from the top to the cold plate is at 165mm. Now do take note that this is a very massive cooler. If you place in a very big case, not an issue. But for some small M-ATX case or even ITX case, it will not fit. Alright, please don't put this on an ITX case. It will not work. And some of the as mentioned, some of the M-ATX small case, it will not fit. Just make sure that the height clearance, right, is above 168. Because this height over here is 165. And don't forget, if you have tall rams, right, if you're going to push this up, okay, it's even taller, which this reaches up to 175mm at height. So take note on this. Now, as for the ram clearance itself, right, at this level with the heatsink, you have a ram clearance of 42mm in height. Else, if you do push this up, it gives you further clearance, which have a height of 62mm. This air cooler comes with two built-in fans, which is at the front. This is a 120mm fan. At the center, 140mm fan. Now, if you choose to plug another 120 at the rear, fan clips are provided in the accessory package where you can add another 120mm fan. Starting off with the front fan, as you can see over here, I mentioned is 120mm as the diameter of it, but the width is 150, and this measurement is 120. It's of a 9-blader, and it does provide a 4-pin PWM fan connector, and with a very nice cover over here, as you can see, brushed aluminum in black, nicely done. Now, as for the fan spec of the front fan, which is the 120mm, this is at minimum 500 RPM or to the max at 2200 RPM, and it's running at 12 DC at the amperage of 0.23 ampere. Next will be the center fan, which is the 140. You will need to go to the top and remove this top cover with this tab. Once you have done this, right, there are two holes over here. You can just pull, but when you pull this fan off, right, double check that this daisy chain connector, as you can see over here, make sure this is not plugged to the front fan. Okay, make sure this is detached. If not, if you do pull the middle fan, right, with this attached, right, you might break the cable. So take note on this. To take off the fan, as mentioned to you, there are two holes over here. Okay, you can just pull. When you pull, right, make sure that this cable, okay, does not go in the way. You can just pull and guide the cable out. See, this is how you pull out the fan. And if you want to place this fan back in, right, make sure you place the cable to the hole where you can see. So place it through there. Once you can feel the cable, right, you can slowly guide it in. And do take note on the direction. If it happens that you take this fan out, okay, it happened that there are directions over here whereby it shows you the arrow, the air is going through the rear. So make sure that this, right, the fan blade of the 140mm fan is facing towards the rear with the exposed to the front. Then you slot it in. Now as for the specs of this 140mm fan, right, it's at minimum of 400 to a max of 1500 RPM, and it's of 12 DC with these two connectors, which is a 4-pin PWM connector with an extension where you can connect, or daisy chain connector to your front fan. Besides this, right, this is of a 7-blader, again with a very nice crest, or should I say the cover, which is brushed aluminium black. Now you might be asking me, hey Kyo, the front fan is running at a minimum of 500 RPM and max at 2200. Else for this 140 is running at 400 to a max of 1400. There are a great difference. So will it hurt in the channeling? Answer is no. Reason being, right, the 140mm fan, though is actually a 7-blader, it pulls tons of air due to the width itself. So you can see the blade, right, all the 7 blades is pretty wide, so it scoops the air. So having all the pressure at the front of a 9-blader spinning at a higher RPM, right, it provides more air through this. In fact, CPS have done the calculation and alignment properly to suit the front fan, 120mm fans running at higher RPM for the center fan to pull. So you don't have to worry that it will damage the fan itself. Now as mentioned to you, right, if you want to slot this back to the heatsink, make sure you go through this cable first, as in like to push it through the hole. Then the direction, right, make sure that the fan frame is facing towards the rear and the exposed area, right, to the front. So this is actually the direction. And just to show you how it's been done, okay, once this is clipped on, right, you can just place this back, the top cover, and to chain this together, as you can see over here, to connect both fans to one of the header to your motherboard, right, which is the CPU fan header, just plug this in. See, it should be long enough. If this is not long enough, you can do this. Take the extension, which is this. Okay, remove off the daisy chain. So do it individually to here, to the extender where you have two sockets over here. I'm not going to remove this rubber here, so it just extend. So whereby it's longer, you can plug this to your motherboard. Kindly be mindful of this air cooler whereby the front fans, right, are not detachable. So if you want to clean the fan, right, especially the underneath, right, you have to take additional care. Next thing will be the center fan, which is a 140mm fan. Now you might think that, oh, I can replace a 140mm fan at the center. No, you can't. Reason being, right, the thickness of this 140mm fan is 30mm thick with the arch over here. Even if you can find a 30mm thick 140mm fans, right, when you place the ordinary fan, right, this will stuck out and it might hinder the placement, especially down here where your M.2 tools are and your side VRM heatsink, the height. So something which you have to take note, and I hope that PCCooler will take into consideration, right, to have the front fan detachable, so this make cleaning easier, and also probably come up with a way whereby others can replace the 140mm fans at the center. Reason I say this, right, in the event if they want to reuse this heatsink and it happened that the fans at the front at the center, right, is damaged, they can just replace the fan even if this warranty period is over. The preparation you need to mount the heatsink to this Intel platform, first thing I would advise you to remove off the center fan of this heatsink. Make sure that the daisy chain is disconnected, which is this. Then remove off the center fan. You can put this one side. Next will be preparation of the brackets. You will need the standoffs, which is from this box. This is how it looks like. Let me just unpack to show you. These are the standoffs and the mounting board. And next you will need the mounting brackets, which is this package over here, which is meant for Intel. You have the brackets, next will be the back plate. Now, as mentioned to you, you are able to use this heatsink from Gen 6 all the way to Gen 15 Intel processor. Now, as you can see, this back plate, right, you can push this out. When you push this out, this is meant for generation 13 all the way to generation 15. If you push it in, this is meant for your generation 6 all the way to generation 12. So right now, this is in fact a 1700 socket meant for generation 13 or 14. I will push this way out. Next thing you need to do, fit the board. Then place this in place according to the screw holes. So once you have done this, right, okay, let me just grab the grip. Okay, turn this over. Next is to mount the standoff, which are this. Do take note on the standoff, as one side is flat, the other side is sunken in. Make sure the sunken in is pointing down and the flat surface is pointing upwards. Because if you were to do it the other way around, right, it would be wrong. So make sure on this. Let me just zoom in to show you. Okay, again, this is sunken in, this is the flat surface. So the flat surface, make sure is pointing upwards. Then you screw on the board. Now when you're screwing to the board, as this is made of metal, so don't over tighten it, as you might scratch the PCB. Something which I like to suggest PCCooler to do is to provide flat washer so that it will protect your PCB when you screw this in. Okay, you don't have to be too tight, just hand tight. Now do take care of one corner which I will be showing you. This 3 section over here is pretty easy, but when it comes to this tight corner over here, which is the top VRM heatsink and the rear VRM heatsink, sometimes it might be too tight, so you will need to do some fiddling to anchor the thread to the hole. Take your time, do not rush, as you wouldn't want to, break any of the caps over here, or should I say capacitor. Now, as mentioned to you, only hand tight, don't over tighten. as you don't want the metal surface, right, to scratch your PCB. Okay, once this is done, right, next thing to do is to mount the brackets. And these are the Intel bracket. And as you can see, right, there are arrow sign, okay, over here and over here. What does the arrow indicate? It indicates that it's pointing inwards where your processor here is located. Now I know that for Intel you can place either way, which is this or this, as it's a square, but make sure you have the correct orientation, as in like to mount it parallel this way and not this way. If you mount it this way, right, okay, let me just zoom out. If you mount it this way, the direction will be wrong, because the two thread over here, which is going to be threaded to this side here, to this side and to this side, okay, will be this way. Then it becomes like your front fan is facing downwards, or probably you can do it this way, which is wrong. And I don't think you can fit it in based on the fact that this will just hit the rear I/O. So make sure that you place this two bracket this way. Alright. And having the arrow, which I shown you earlier, pointing towards the processor. Once it's done, the last thing you need to do is to place this mounting board, which is straightforward job. These are to hold the bracket to the standoff. Again, you don't have to tighten it too much, just hand tight will do. Now once this is done, right, assuming that the processor is there, and do pardon me that my processor is undergoing RMA, so I can't illustrate the actual mounting. So assuming there's a processor here, what you need to do is to clean off with alcohol, make it clean, wipe dry. Then next thing is to pull this off. As you can see, the prepaste, right? Okay, just illustration. I'm not going to press it down as there's no processor. So the direction should be this way, as in like the fan at the front, and this heatsink over here, right, the pin stack is facing to the back. Then you mount it in, and once you have mounted in, right, anchor this 2 point, as in like this point here and this point to here. Once you anchor it properly, right, you can then use the screwdriver, you on the inside screw the thread down, right, as you can see, right. Okay, let me just illustrate. See, so just screw this in alternately on both ends until it's secured. Once this heatsink, right, is in place, assuming that it's in place, the next thing you need to do is to place back the 140mm fan. And take note on the direction. Okay, this is the front of this is the 120mm fan at the front. And how you place this back, see this frame over here, the fan frame, it should be facing back, as in like the rear. And the open section is towards the front, because air is drawing this way, as there are arrows over here showing that the direction should be this way. So follow the direction. Again, as a reminder, do not just shove the whole thing in. Make sure you guide the cable through the holes. As you can see what I'm doing right now, pushing through the hole. Then at the bottom, right, hold on to the cable and slowly pull and to guide this in. Once it's done, you can cover this. Okay, next step is, I know this is very easy because it's not fixed in. So when it's fixed into the onto the motherboard itself, right, you got to feather this, pull this out, and to plug this as a daisy chain. And once you have done this, okay, this is a bit tricky. Okay, this is done. At this end, this is supposed to plug the 4-pin PWM fan connector is to be plugged to the CPU fan header over here, which I know is this. Okay, and your 3-pin ARGB connector to the 3-pin ARGB connector on the motherboard. And to control the lightings, right, you need to use your motherboard utility. For AMD platform, first thing, take off the bracket which you see over here. This is meant for AM5 and AM4. I ripped off the plastic, so these are the brackets that is needed. First thing you need to do, remove the screws on the original brackets. You can remove this brackets out. Next, we'll be mounting the standoff, just like how you mount on the Intel. Similar method whereby the sunken in, right, should be facing down and the flat surface should be facing up. Let me just zoom in. For AMD is a very good mount whereby I don't have any obstruction. And one thing to take note, that when you're mounting this standoffs, right, or before you mount the heatsink itself, make sure you have your RAMs slot in. Same apply to the Intel platform. Make sure that your RAMs are in. For this AMD platform, which is running on a 7950X, I'm running a low profile RAMs, so I need not have to adjust on the heatsink where I showed you earlier. The front 120mm, right, you can elevate up, pushing it up. If you're using taller RAMs, which is above 42mm at height, probably exceed around 55, then you will need to push the front fan up so that you have more clearance. Again, hand tight. Next thing, same orientation. Okay, doing it this way. By the way, there's only one direction you can do, which is this. Having the arrow pointing inwards so that your processor is over here. So you do it this way. And again, to fasten the brackets, use the mounting bolt. Again, you don't have to be so tight, just hand tight will do. Now for this, I will be able to illustrate you in full how I do the mounting. And you will be good that I'm using the actual thermal paste. Now for the heatsink itself, take out your top cover, remove off the 140mm fans first, and right now you're gonna mount the heatsink. So let me just zoom out. Mounting of the heatsink, right, first thing you will need to do is to know the orientation. I know that this is the orientation. Take this off, put it one side, then use some alcohol and a wipe to clean your processor. So once this is done, right, you can now sit the heatsink in, and to align this and this to the track. Take your time, you don't have to rush. Now I know that it's seated properly. Again, I always have a habit Be it whether outside the case or inside the case, I will place my palm on the rear I/O and to hold the heatsink, so you have a stability there and it doesn't wobble. Then next thing to do is to screw the thread onto the processor. A better angle of what you see right now, as mentioned, on my left, right, my palm is on the rear I/O holding the heatsink. So right now you can screw the thread in diagonally until it's seated nicely. One other thing that I noticed, that if I use my own screwdriver, right, I hardly have a proper grip, see, to tighten. It's best to use this instead, because this enables you to have more leverage as a knight, you know, to push with both hands on each end. So this is actually tightened, and my style, once it's tightened, right, I don't just leave it that way. I will loosen it by just a bit, so that not too much pressure of the heatsink to the IHS that will cause not able to put and such, which I've encountered. Next thing you need to do is to place the 140mm fan back in place, where I mentioned that the frame should be facing back and the open surface over here, or should I say without the fan frame, is facing towards the front. This is where the air draws in. So I'll tuck the cable through the hole over there. I will try to catch it beneath, as you can see what I'm doing right now. Then slowly guide the fan in and to slot in place. Once this is done, you can close the top. The last step you need to do is to fiddle with all this cable over here, whereby this is the 140mm fan with a splitter. So connect this to the front 120mm fan, and once you have done this, at this end, this is where you should be mounting to your motherboard CPU fan header, which I know that it's over here. So I'm just going to plug it in. And when you plug it in, right, probably you might want to tuck this cables in nicely. In fact, PCCooler have taught all about this, giving you space like this to tuck your cable nicely, which I'm doing right now. Then I can just plug this in. Next thing is this ARGB connector, which is the 3-pin 5V, which over here is my 3-pin 5V, and I'll just plug over here. Again, you will need to, once you've tucked this, right, you will need to tidy up the cables over here, probably pushing it in. And this is how it's like. When you intend to use this air cooler on a M-ATX board, please be mindful, as I'm showing you here, for this B650 M mortar, right, yes, there's enough space. As you can see on the first slot, this is where you place your graphic card. If it happens that the first slot is too near, which is one slot up, which some of them does, you're not able to mount your graphic card at all, based on the fact that this beefy air cooler, right, the heatsink will hit the GPU. I would advise not to place this heatsink on any ITX board or any M-ATX board that has weird positioning. So take note on this. It's best that you can get a ATX board to mount this air cooler, or if there's not enough space, right, there is, alternative, you can mount your graphic card vertically instead of horizontally. Just want to let you hear how it sounds like when it's at idle and it's at load. As you can see, my microphone is away from the air cooler about 30 cm. So right now it's at idle. This is how it sounds like. And now I'm going to run Cinebench, and you hear the fan pumping up. As you have witnessed, there are no sharp pitch, which is good. It just gives a subtle hiss. Do note that I'm taking this at an open bench, so imagine that if this is in your case, right, you'll be much quieter. Now again, this is at idle. This is how it sounds like. And right now, I'm going to run Cinebench again. See, it's just a hum or hiss. This is how it looks like at the top. The only lights that have effect is at the top, whereby you have this always at amber or orange, and as mentioned, the logo is very small, then followed by the ARGB effect at this triangular. Now right now it's actually a rainbow. If you want to change, you can go to your motherboard to change the effect. Let me just show you. As you can see here, right, I've selected steady and I apply. See, it will react. And let's say if I were to change another color, see, it will react. So this is actually how you change it, due to the fact that the ARGB is connected to your motherboard. Now, something to note before I proceed to show you the results. As you can see over here right now, see, my room temperature is 31.2 degrees Celsius. It went up because it's in the afternoon time, it's pretty warm. So let's begin with the benchmark test and to show you the results. Before showing you the actual stats on what this air cooler can do with the thermal on this 7950X, as you can see on my top right, I'm making use of the B650M Morta Wi-Fi motherboard with this Ryzen 9 7950X processor. And as you know that at the beginning I showed you that my room temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, so I wouldn't want to fry my processor, and I've done some tweak on UEFI on the OC section where I enabled the Expo profile. Next will be on the advanced CPU configuration where I click on AMD overclocking, precision boost overdrive. I've set this to advanced. Then from here, right, I've done the manual configuration, starting off with the PPT, TDC and EDC. PPT I will set it to 192. Then TDC I will set it to 152. Followed by the EDC, I'll set it to 170. And for the curve optimizer, I've set everything to negative, all cores negative to 15. Besides this, I have done an offset on the core voltage. As you can see over here, it's offset minus 0.05 volt. Then on the hardware monitor, I've set the fan, which is on the air cooler, to PWM. So you will follow this curve and you will draw at max 100% when it's at 80 degrees Celsius. Before I proceed to show you the results and to tell you how I felt about this air cooler, something I like to clarify. As mentioned again and again, I come from a hot and humid country, and a lot couldn't understand that in a warm environment like right now, as often I show you that, oh look, the temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, but often people say that I programmed this. Well, to show you the analog stats, see, I'm actually seriously in my room is 30 degrees Celsius, and how I keep myself cool is to turn on the fan. But most of the time when I conduct this benchmark test and such, right, I will just turn off the fans and let it be, and to endure through. Reason being, right, you can see, okay, I'm not too sure if you can see, I am perspiring while I'm actually doing this content, so take note on this. So having to do it in an open bench instead of inside the case, right? Inside the case, I need to torque the airflow, because be it whether in the case or outside the case, when the cooler, be it AIO or air cooler, right, it will draw warm air through the fans, because the atmosphere is warm. It's not like, you know, you're in Norway or in colder countries whereby you have breezy air. And for your information, when I mention about humidity, right, hot and humid, it means to say the atmosphere of the air is very dense. So the containment of warm air, right, I mean lukewarm air, right, that passes through the fans to your fin stack, be it the air cooler or the AIO, the radiator, is actually drawing warm air. That's why it accumulates up. And if you were to judge, right, why didn't I place this at default, run at default? Because I wouldn't want to fry my processor, which I did on my Intel. Sad to say, that's why I can't test on the Intel. So do understand this when I'm conducting in an open bench, right? Be it whether open case, I mean inside the case or open bench, the surrounding of my area is having warm air. And also part of the reason why I have limited down the power limits, the PBO2 and such, I've toned it down, even the B-core offset. And having to say that, right, even if I were to tone down, right, having the temperature, I'll be able to tell with those settings that whether the air cooler or the AIO is good. This is the recording I've done, making use of Cinebench R23, firmware running at the background because I want to stress even more on the integrated graphics, which you will see over here, the load. And not only this, the stats of hardware info, showing you all the clock speed of each core. And especially this section here, Ryzen Master, which I deliberately pull out just to show you that the setting on the PVT, the TDC, and the EDC. Now, something I've actually done a mistake whereby the EDC, right, I pump 1 ampere more, but that will not hurt the overall result. Probably will be slightly higher, but still will do. As you can see, right, if I were to run this, this is actually a recording. Now, how I conduct the test is pretty straightforward, whereby I will run the Cinebench. When I mount the air cooler to the system, right, I'll let it run for 30 minutes, then let it idle for 10 minutes. Then I'll do the actual 10 minutes recording, and this is what you see on the actual 10 minutes recording. As you can see, as it's running, right, so right now it's hovering pretty well, probably 85 or so. Let me just drag all the way to the last 2 minutes, probably around here. Okay, last, probably I'll drag. Let's see. Okay, now as you can see, right, the last 2 minutes, right, the temperature is still holding at 87 degrees Celsius and not beyond that. To me, in my region, this is considered very good. If I were to put this in the case, right, probably it will just go 88 or 89 with good airflow control. And besides this, right, when you look at it, right, overall, why I say that this air cooler is good, look at the temperature on the motherboard, the MOSFET, the chipset. Case system is in fact the motherboard, the MOSFET, and the chipset, and followed by your RAMs and the M.2. All these are within the 50 degree mark, except for the MOSFET. So you never go beyond that, which is good. And you look at the clock frequency is very consistent, it's flat. And you must be saying that, hey, no big deal, 87 degrees, you know, hovering at 5 gigahertz and can sustain it. Some of the cores, right, can sustain at 5.125 or 5.15 gigahertz. It's not a big deal. Well, let me just share with you something. The previous thing, I know this is not apple to apple, it's not an apple to apple kind of comparison. Okay, let me just do this. Now, for this, right, this is actually on the previous test that I've done on this liquid AIO known as the DS360 from PCCooler. If I'm to run this, right, okay, let me just track it to the last 2 minutes. Yes, it has a very good temperature. It does hold on 5 gigahertz because this is a liquid AIO. So basically it's definitely better than an air cooler. And looking at the gigahertz, right, is 5.2 or 5.175 as compared to the air cooler. But the thing is, if you were to see, right, side by side, before I go side by side, same setting is being applied. Look at the PBT, 192, 192 over here. TDC, where's the TDC? Over here, 152, 152. EDC, 170, and this is slightly higher, 171 ampere. Now, based on this fact, right, if I were to judge side by side, okay, there is an advantage on this air cooler, which is on my right. This is the temperature of the air cooler, as you can see over here. Now, if I were to let it run, right, take a look at the rest of the components. My motherboard temperature is lower compared to the the liquid cooler. My MOSFET is about the same or slightly higher. Then on the RAMs and the M.2. And on my previous content, I did mention that the M.2 drive, right, I've actually spoiled my original armor shield. That's why my liquid cooler, when I tested on, right, is 51 degrees Celsius. But this, right, using the same setup, everything the same, but it's lower. Why is it so? Well, let me explain. Based on the fact that you have a fan that is blowing, okay, in an open area, or should I say through the fin stack on the RZ820, right, some of the air is being passed down. Same goes to the back. So this will cool down the M.2 and the rest of the component. As in, like, if it can't force to the back, right, it will just circulate. See over here, it will just circulate out, whereby you can see, witnessing that the RAMs are cooler as compared to the liquid AIO. So with this say, right, of course I can compare this to the air cooler, but somehow I do not have any air cooler with me, so sorry about this. I'm more towards a liquid cooler person due to the fact that, as mentioned, I'm in a hot and humid country, and most of the time I do not turn on the aircon always, and it's always turning on the fan to cool me down. So with this say, right, if I were to purchase an air cooler, right, this is a good buy, as all this, right, have already shown that it's proven that it's good. Oh, one last thing that I want to mention is that when it runs, right, see the power, right, it did draw to what I've said, which is 192, close to it. Alright, so these are things that I would take note when I purchase a air cooler. So this is just my experience. The impression this air cooler coming from PCCooler, known as the RZ820, it's a pleasant one. In fact, I like the whole structure and the whole build, inclusive of the lightings. It's not overdosed with ARGB. As some of you might not know, that I am a person that do not really like ARGB that much. I prefer things to be very elite, sleek, black, grey, gunmetal and such. So this fit to my category. If I were to mount this in a very classic case, right, it will look very elegant. And also the fact that the structure of the build is very solid. You don't feel any corner cuts and such. Things like removable, they have done into details, like the ARGB and such. Oh, by the way, this cover, right, no matter how I press my fingers on it, right, there are no fingerprints on it, which is good. And the thoughtfulness of how the layout is, and easy access to the 140mm fan, where you can clean it and to put it back. Also to the fact that the front section, right, this 120mm fans, right, you can adjust them with ease to give clearance for your RAMs, which is good. And another thing is that I forgot to mention on my result, whereby once you daisy chain this 120mm fan together with the 140mm fans, right, the readings will be at max 1700 RPM. So based on the fact that it's both running at that speed, 1700 RPM, and this is not max, because the daisy chain, right, comes from the 140mm fan. And with this say, right, when it runs at max 1400, 1700 RPM or 1700 RPM, right, it can sustain the temperature at 87 degrees Celsius, which is very impressive. And also the fact that it does cool down other components besides your CPU, and that will give a long run for your motherboard and also to your processor, and also enable the rest of the components. In fact, most of the PC builders have lagged on this, whereby they have neglected the rest of the components. If you have cooler VRM, I mean heatsink, you have cooler M.2 and cooler RAM slot area, right? Those are the things that will enhance and to push, I mean allow to push the system up and to maintain at that frequency. Most of the time when I test on Aircooler, which are being loaned from the vendors and from local distro and such, right, I am not able to sustain at 5 GHz. That's the thing. But this Aircooler does, and my prediction was correct, whereby this 8 heat pipe does do its job very properly. I've tested 7 heat pipe, I've tested 6 heat pipe. As mentioned, I'm not able to sustain 5 GHz on a I mean based on the settings that I've set, right, I'm not able to sustain at 5 GHz on a 7950X processor. Now, things that I hope that PCCooler will improve on is probably try to make this swivelable up and down fan, right, removable, because sometimes we need to clean the fan and it's very difficult that a fan is fixed to it and you have to, you know, go underneath the blade to clean all the dust, or to take a so-called blower to blow off the dust from the heatsink. And also another fact is that the mounting mechanism, where you have all this mounting standoffs, I wish that you can provide some flat washer so that when you mount it to the motherboard, right, the metal will not scratch on the PCB, because sometimes based on the fact that there are traces on the PCB itself, I mean not a lot of motherboard will do that, but there are still some I mean some motherboards, right, have traces on the holes itself, I mean at the side and such. So it will be great that you can provide some washers. And another thing is another thing is that on AMD platform, right, it's very easy to plug this in, okay, not an issue. But for Intel, right, especially the tight corners, as I've shown on the other content, right, there is a tool to extend this to the standoff so that, you know, you can just screw it in without having the hassle of figuring your fingers, right, at a tight corner to screw down the standoffs. Now besides this, right, all the plates, or should I say the brackets, inclusive of the Intel, is nicely plated. It's not full silver, in fact it's black, kind of nickel copper kind of surface, which is also to the gold plate. Now this gold plate is extremely good in a way that, you know, it does spread out. When I dismount this and to see the thermal paste, right, is fully spreaded, nicely spreaded. I should actually show you that, but I didn't take down that, but take my word for it, it's nicely spread. Well done. As for the price of this cooler, I believe it's at 148 or 49, I can't remember, in USD. So consider the fact that this does perform well in my region, and you will perform even better if you're in the colder region, due to the fact that there are lots of metal area whereby you absorb all the coldness. Instead, if you are in a hotter country, right, like where I am, right, this is considered good too, though it's actually absorbing warm loop air. Well, hope you guys have actually enjoyed what I've shared with you, and with this said, I'd like to thank PCCooler from the company CPS to provide this unit for me to share with you guys. And if you are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.